Welcome. I'm here with Maeka Wright, and I wanted to do this little interview because they had a really good result working with yoga therapy practices, and I know that's inspirational for a lot of people to hear. So thank you for being with us.
Hi.
So why don't you tell us what your issue was? I should say Maeka is a student and in our advanced practicum in our yoga therapy school. And so this is like a little bit of an unusual sort of way Maeka came into this like yoga therapy solution. So why don't you tell us what your issue was? We'll start there and how that sort of manifested.
So I have alopecia, which is hair loss. The type of alopecia I have is all of the hair on my entire body. And it started about 16 years ago after the birth of my second child. Within the span of a few months, I just lost all of my hair. Through the years, there had been brief moments where it started to come and then went again. And yeah, it's just obviously been hard to deal with on lots of levels. Being a
Yeah.
person suddenly with no hair,
As
a
I
lot
also
that
do
can
not have
happen.
hair, so
Yeah.
I do appreciate it. A little different for me. I expected it. So okay, so that was challenging for you, obviously. And I met you when I met you. How long ago was that?
Is it like 4 years ago? I
Four
feel
years
like it's
ago.
been a while. Yeah.
Right, you didn't have any hair. So
Yeah.
if you're watching this on video, as we can see, you have some hair.
Yeah.
So and you shared with me that the yoga therapy practices made a big change. So maybe you could walk us through what that was like for you.
So previous to starting the training at Breathing Deeply, my own yoga practice, I think I just really like to push myself really hard and do everything to the max and do workouts that were really hard and really sweaty. And then I started the training and I started to learn about doshas and different ways of balancing, not really thinking that this would fix my alopecia, but just for my own learning. I decided to follow the training for pitta balancing.
So
Change.
everyone listening, if you don't know what that is, it's an Ayurvedic framework where we decide basically which yoga practices you would do to balance yourself, and people fall into one of a few categories. So Nick is talking about learning about that and identifying themselves as pitta imbalance, so particular kind of imbalanced. And you did some practices. What did those practices look like?
So instead of doing all these like hot, long, hard, sweaty yoga practices, I started paying more attention to how I was actually feeling while I was doing yoga practice, learning to notice when I was getting tired, when I was getting too hot, which at the time was a totally new experience for me. And I worked on that for quite a while. I did some different breathing practices than I had done in the past. Some of the other practices that we learned for also balancing pitta.
Most of all of this involves getting like way more sensitive to yourself,
Yeah.
really,
Mm-hmm.
which you would think would apply to everyone, but it's especially for people who are pitta imbalanced. If you're listening, that's how that works.
I think when I started, I didn't realize how much I wasn't paying attention to. And then kind of like as you get into it, you're like, oh, wow, there's a lot going on in here. And I'm just ignoring all of the cues. So just
Mhm.
taught me how to be more in tune with what's actually happening in my body and my mind.
And then
And
when did you notice like a change? Well, I guess we're talking about alopecia. So, you
yeah,
have the changes you have just from practicing yoga, which
yeah.
were, what did you notice first?
So first I just noticed that I had less anxiety. I think that was the first thing that happened from the yoga practice. And it also became really clear of cues that were happening in my body and my mind outside of my yoga practice. So obvious changes I needed to make in my lifestyle through actually listening to myself instead of ignoring as I was used to. So made some big
So you had some.
changes.
So when did we start seeing some hair? When did you go, oh,
Um, about a year.
about a year?
Yeah.
So a year into it, you started seeing some hair growth, and is that continuing? Is that kind of
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
trajectory? Um, That's interesting. So it's a several year process.
It's a several year process, but it's just continuing to grow, which
Right,
is weird
right.
for me because I kind of got used to not having it.
And there's a certain type of individual, we assess people with autoimmune diseases that we use these practices for. So it would apply to alopecia like it did for you, but it could apply to a lot of other autoimmune diseases, lupus, eczema, all sorts of things. So I just wanted to kind of share this with anyone who's listening because I think it's really inspirational. I know alopecia is a very difficult thing for a lot of people. It is really, I
Hmm.
don't know if you experienced that, but a lot of people have a lot of attachment to their hair, which for obvious reasons. And there isn't a lot you could do about it, right? In terms of treatment.
There's no exact treatment. Lots of doctors
Yeah.
wanted to try things like pouring acid on my head to peel my skin off or injecting me with steroids, but I wasn't interested in any of those treatments.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here we are with your hair growing back. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. I hope it's inspirational to anyone hearing this that they can have some agency over their own process if they have it.
And I don't have to sleep with a hat on anymore.
Well, that sounds amazing because I
Way
do.
less cold.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Mike. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.